So the first thing that's done is that the piece gets, I start with a photograph. A photograph is sent to me, or I have a photograph and I put it into Photoshop and I make an image that I can work with. And in fact, here's an image of David that he had shot of himself. I had asked him if he had some shots to give me, and this was a photograph that he had in color. I manipulated it into black and white and made an image of it. And actually, it's a transparency. You can see that it's clear, so that light can go through it. So now, after I have that, I have a light table, but the light table wasn't strong enough. So this time of day, it's not that sunny, but here you can see a portrait of Dan Weldon. A lot of you know Dan Weldon. He was part of this series, but I didn't quite finish him in time to get it into the show, but he's my next project. But what I'll do is I'll take the transparency, put it up on the window, and at this time of day when the light is usually very strong, I could put it through the Arches 88 paper. So I can then do a cartoon. And in this case, you can see most of the line work is very minimal. I did a lot more shading afterwards, but this is the best example I had. And to see the drawing itself without the light showing through, there you can see the just the drawing. This is the nature of the cartoon that I did, so that I have a starting point with the eyes in the right place, the nature of the mouth, and so on. I found that to make everybody in a likeness that was appropriate with what I'm trying to do, I had to get it right. I could spend a lot of time and do each portrait and work it until I get it right, but that wasn't the point. It was getting the likeness that made it important. So doing that cartoon to start with was very important. So then once I have the cartoon, I take it back to this drawing area. And working with this setup like so, I just refer to the drawing, I refer to the photo, and I do the drawing, and I got the whole thing as deep as I needed to go. Once the drawing is complete, in this case, David, I photograph the drawing and make a transparency. Okay, so that transparency on my Epson inkjet printer, I've got a 24-inch printer. Transparency is then made into a plate, and the plate is over on the side there. I'll show you there in a minute. But once the plate is made, then I can continue to print as many times as I want. And this is the first impression that I made from the plate, from the transparency, from the drawing, from the photograph. So a lot of different incarnations here. So this being the proof image, I did a few more things. So Adam, if you follow me over here, yeah, okay, great. Here's the plate. Here's the plate of David. Okay, this is an image-on plate. It's a blue film that gets laminated in water and then exposed like a solar plate in an exposure unit, or if you have the proper facility, you can do it in the sun. I have this exposure unit here. All this stuff is part of what happens in the Pokrasso studio. So to get the backgrounds, I first needed to run a monotype. And in this area right here, I have a release agent table, and I take a little bit of Aqua liquid pigment. This is yellow ochre, my favorite background color. Put a few drops into the release agent, roll it out onto a plate, and here you see the printed impression from the plate after I had done that rolling out. So this is my monotype background, and it's repeatable because I can pretty much control the amount of ink that I put on there and so on. Once I have a background, then I put it on the other press. And in this case, I ink and wipe the plate. In this case, I used Charlie's image, and I inked and wiped the image that has Charlie on it, and the impression comes up like that, with the image of Charlie on top of the monotype of the background. And then, after I'm done with that, I'm gonna work straight back. I'll take another impression. Here's Charlie's impression on fabric. I printed the plate again. In fact, I printed Adam and Ryan, okay? And Nikki and Leah, everybody's got a second impression on top of a piece of fabric, and the fabric is just bed sheet. We found that it really prints beautifully. Now, the nice thing is that this fabric remains clean. One of the things I was thinking about when I was working on this project is all the different variations I can do in the backgrounds. I can make color on some of them, do black and white on some of them, put a color mask on somebody, put a photograph in the background with a mask on top. There's all kinds of possibilities, or even mix and match the masks with the faces. But it gave me too many options. In fact, Robert Marks, one of the guys that I talked about, mentors, I showed him my work many, many years ago and showed him all these possibilities of different things. He said, I love it, I could never work that way. It's just too many choices. And that kind of solidified with me for this project. When I did the one that had the tone on it with a white mask on top, I said, that's it. I don't have to go any further. That's what I'm doing for all of them. So
you just had a question. What type of fabric are you using?
Oh, yes. This is just a cotton bed sheet. It's a pretty good weave. And I just cut out these little 6x9 squares. In fact, my intention here is to make a regular mask out of each of these. This is what started the whole thing several months ago. Marianne and I made a dozen masks for people close to us. In fact, this is one of them. So the formula to make the mask, which is an important thing too, because to make the mask, you got to put pleats in them so they fill the volume of your face. We did all that. And thinking about making masks for this project, that's what I had thought about doing. But they're going on two-dimensional spaces. So we nixed that idea in favor of cutting out the masks. We cut out the mask and then stitched them. There's Adam's mask, and in fact, I'm going to do something here. Can you turn it around? There's Adam with his mask. Okay.
There was also a question, what type of ink are you working with?
This is a Kua Intaglio non-toxic ink. Yeah. And I'm mixing the color. It's about 50%, no, 33% carbon black, 33% magenta, and 33% transparent base. A lot of pressure to get the detail. So there's Charlie's mask. And what I'd like to do after it was stitched, I would trim it a little bit, and I'm going to pull this out. And the last thing to do is to assemble the mask. It fits perfectly because it's the same print. And I'll stitch here, here, and here, and tie it off in the back and call it monotype intaglio with temporary collage. So after the virus is done, we have a vaccine, and we're all ready, good to go again. You can snip off the backs of your masks and have just the portrait. I wanted to say something about Jack Wolski. I made a point when I started this talk. Jack was my drawing teacher in one semester in college. And I remember showing him this drawing at one point. I happen to have it. It's from 1972. And he looked at it and he said, "Oh, that's really nice. Very beautiful drawing. How'd you do that? What made you think of that?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "Did you work from a photograph?" And at the time, I thought that was bad. So I said, no. And of course, I worked from a photograph. So we've come a long way, because coming from this to do what I did to make these likenesses from photographs and to copy and trace them, I've been doing that for a lot of years. But I really feel good about the fact that I can still draw. So it doesn't take away one bit. So I'm going to go back to the computer and take whatever questions you have. It's a pleasure doing this. And